To demonstrate computed properties, I'm going to introduce a rectangle struct. So struct rectangle. A rectangle has a width and a rectangle has a height. From the width and the height, you can actually get an area. You wouldn't make this a property, okay, because this actually depends on width and height. Instead, you could make a function for it that says get area. It returns an integer, and you could return width times height. Okay, so that's well and good. And if you want to feel really clever, you could get rid of this return statement over here. And it's implicitly returned because it's the only line in the function. Ooh, now you feel so clever. What you can do now is you can create a rectangle get rect 20 and 30, and you can say print rect.get area. Okay, so that's well and good. I have not taught you anything new in this video just yet. You hopefully know what all this means. These are properties and methods. Okay, great. You could, however, do this with a computed area property. Okay, so instead of saying get area open bracket close bracket, it might make more sense to do it this way. You could say var area :int open curly brace width times height. And I think that looks a lot nicer, and it totally works. I'm just going to prove this to you. Rect.area. And I'm just going to run my code real quick and wait for the console to pop up. There we go. It says 600 just as before. And this just looks a lot nicer because it feels as though it's a property, but it's not a property you need to set. It's a property that is computed, hence computed properties. Okay, so this is something you might have encountered before. If you've made an array, you might have noticed that if you want the size of an array, you don't call a count method on the array. You instead just say .count because it's a computed property. Here we are in SwiftUI. It's a very simple app. I've just created a struct rectangle over here as well, and I've created an array of rectangles. But what I really want to point out to you though is this line that says var body sum view. You might have heard me refer to this in other videos, and I always tell you about how the code inside here is view builder code. Now, this thing right here is a computed property. Okay, it says var, and it has a name. The colon tells it a type. Sum view is a pretty special type. Okay, you can read more about it online. And inside the curly braces is how to construct this view, the value that is returned by someone calling for the property of body. Who actually calls for the body property? Well, that's your SwiftUI system. When your view gets loaded, essentially it's going to try and render, and it's going to ask for the body property in order to render it on screen. Okay, so you might recall us saying, hey, all these things, all these curly braces, they're closures. This thing over here is a definition of a struct, but this thing down here, this is a computed property. And computed properties are especially useful in SwiftUI because you might run into a situation where you need to do a lot of work with a bunch of data. For example, you might want to access somewhere inside your SwiftUI code the total lengths of all the rectangles. Okay, and if you were to try and do that in a for loop, you have to put that into some kind of onAppear and things like that. The easiest way to do it is by using a computed property, and that will compute the widths when it's asked for. So I'm going to say all widths :int, okay, because it's an integer type, and the curly brace is how to compute it. And we're going to say reduce, I believe, 0, open curly brace, followed by $0 plus $1.width. Okay, so that should, in theory, give all the widths inside here, and it's just a nice way of defining everything inside a single property that makes sense to call. Okay, so let me just test this real quick, and I'm just going to put here rect all widths. Okay, so there we go, 22. That sounds about right. 10 plus 5 plus 7. Okay, so once again, computed properties, start with a var, give a type, and use a curly brace to define what gets returned.